Welcome to SmithWeekly Discussions, an occasional program for our members of SmithWeekly Research. Please note this program is a private discussion and everything contained herein is for entertainment and educational purposes only. With that, we hope you're in a comfortable position, along with your favorite beverage, to enjoy the discussion. We remind our audience to examine our show notes attached to each of our shows to better understand how our program functions. Before we get into our discussion, we want to say thanks for questions coming from our audience of Smith Weekly, including Luke A., John B., Ryan S., and Mike P. On the program today is a new guest. Mr. Mark Kolebaba is with us on the program. Mark is the president and CEO of URZ3 Energy. URZ3 is a new startup company focused on establishing uranium projects in various jurisdictions, with a focus first in the United States. URZ3 Energy is the third iteration of a history of successes by the management team and board, which included Uranerz Energy, sold to Energy Fuels in 2015, and URZ Energy, sold to Azarga Uranium in 2018, which is now part of Encore Energy. URZ3 continues to seek prospective uranium projects through an acquisition strategy. The company is listed on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the symbol URZ and also on the US OTC markets under the symbol NVDEF. Mr. Kolebaba, welcome to Smith Weekly Discussions.
Thank you, Andrew. Always fun to be here.
Yeah, Mark, great to have you on the program first time. And with that, as customary for our new guests, I'd like to have you start off here with giving us your relevant background and experience in the junior natural resource business, as well as in the uranium business.
Prior to coming into the junior sector, I was working with some of the larger companies like BHP Billiton, Cominco, and it was in 2002 I left all that and got into the junior sector, and really never really looked back. It's been exciting and not always easy, but started off in the diamond sector, went into the uranium sector in about 2007. Really had a strong Canadian focus, not just Canada, but really a strong northern Canada, up in Nunavut and also in Saskatchewan in the Athabasca Basin. At that time, uranium had a great run. It was exciting. There were funds available. We took a northern project, developed about a 19 to 20 million pound resource in Nunavut, and prior to things happening in Japan, and it was a pretty exciting time, and we developed a decent resource there. Since 2012, we've moved on to other things like gold, but we're certainly back into the uranium side because we see a very strong uranium market moving forward.
Mark, appreciate that, and good to know that you have a background there going back into the last cycle, and then of course a longer career in the general natural resource sector as well, both in the juniors and experience with the majors. With that, I'd like to know how you look at the uranium market today, maybe also what items stand out to you most recently in the uranium sector that you have your eyes on, and really where we are in the market at this point from your perspective.
Interestingly, I don't think it's changed a whole lot from the last cycle in terms of the interest in building more reactors worldwide. It's still an ongoing. There's really nothing that can beat a good reactor if you want constant power. I particularly like the USA, and there's a lot going on in the US. Things like these waivers now, not allowing uranium coming in from Russia. That's an interesting situation. There is absolutely a huge demand for electricity. We're not going to be using less anytime soon. So, puts us into, I think, a market that it's going to have some volatility, but the long-term outlook for uranium just can't disappoint. I mean, it's a very important commodity, and it's a very important source of power for the U.S., for Canada, and for the world, really.
With that, I'd like to get your thoughts just too, as a follow-up here, just your thoughts on how you've seen this correction this year, 2024, just for the perspective of a junior company and just that overall sentiment destruction out there, at least for the time being. Just any thoughts on the smaller juniors and where they stand on valuation?
For us, we see uranium as a long-term commodity that you want to be in. And, you're going to get these fluctuations where, it hit a high of $106 or what, in that range, and it's come back now to $78. But I think that's still a very healthy range that we're in. And, if you look back at uranium history, Uranium has hit some pretty low lows, and we're in a position now. It's anything above 70 is good. There's a lot of deposits that can operate above that price, and if you can't, it's probably a pretty tough deposit in the first place. I think it's been tough for the explorers, but I think having a long-term outlook on uranium, you've got to expect these kinds of fluctuations.
Certainly, we've seen these fluctuations too many times really to count at this point. We'd have to go back and actually count them up because I've already lost track on how many corrections we've seen. Where the fundamentals stand today, of course, we've talked at length about this for many years, and of course, are a little bit tired after 8 years here talking about it. But nonetheless, we keep abreast as to the key
But
items, and of course,
it's like that with every commodity right now. I mean, you see it with copper, you see it with gold, and everything has fluctuations, and there's no getting around that in the resource sector.
lots of things out there that play into this, and it's not just obviously the S&D fundamentals here in the uranium sector. There's other outside forces that are playing a role here in 2024 and will most likely have some impacts in 2025 as well. So appreciate the thoughts on that, Mark. With respect to URZ3, which I'd like to get into now, why don't you just give us a quick brief, if you will, overview of the company, and then from there we'll get into some specific details.
URZ3 Energy Corp is essentially a startup in terms of on the uranium side, but it was previously called Nevada Exploration Inc., which was a gold company, and it had a number of gold assets in Nevada. It still continues to have those projects, and it has proprietary methodology for exploring in areas like Nevada. So those are some important assets for us. We hold on to those. But URZ3 Energy Corp is now focused on looking for new uranium projects as well. And our focus right now is USA and Canada, and for a lot of reasons. Is the world getting more stable? I don't know, but certainly if it doesn't get more stable, I really like the idea of being in the USA or in Canada. We like the mining law. We like how people view uranium as a source of energy, and we've got a strong team. We've got a very good share structure. We are out looking for new assets that will help this company grow and become a major player in the uranium side.
Mark, let's talk capital structure for a moment while we're on this. Go ahead and cover off where we are on cap structure in terms of current shares outstanding, the cash on hand, and then also the major shareholders on the roster at this point.
The share structure right now, we've got about a little over 25 million shares issued. We have about 18 million warrants that are out of the money, but not that far out. And we see that as a relatively significant financing for us in the future. If once we move the price up a little bit, that can bring in over $3 million. And our total share structure, fully diluted, is around 46 million or so. So we're in really good shape. We've got some cash in the treasury. We're going to do a small financing, and we'll be looking at more marketing as well as property acquisition. One of our significant shareholders is Dennis Higgs. Dennis Higgs was one of the original. He had I guess not the original, but the second URZ3 run. He had a very successful run in Wyoming. He developed a property base. From that, they identified the Nichols Ranch, developed that, and they were able to sell that to Energy Fuels. So, that's a pretty decent deposit, probably close to 9 million pounds at a decent grade, in situ recovery, and it's a really nice deposit actually that came out of the original URZ. So Dennis remains a very large shareholder and very significant, and he's quite involved in the project as well.
Yeah, good to hear a little bit about some of the folks who hold this. It's very early days here with this new company. And of course, you guys have refurbished and refocused a prior gold exploration company, as you said before. With that, talk a little bit about some of that first strategy initiatives that are being sought. The company has some exploration grounds in Canada. There's some prior grounds for gold exploration in Nevada, of course. But talk about what you can on the next plans. And then, of course, it sounds like there'll be some financing needs coming up soon, but just talk about how you guys are looking at this initial focus area and that strategy.
We have our first uranium project. It's in the Athabasca Basin in Saskatchewan. It's close to the margin. It's an interesting property. It hasn't had a lot of work on it, but it has some pretty interesting aspects to it. And I don't know if that's going to be our focus. We like that project. We like that district. Obviously, the Saskatchewan Athabasca is world class. We're pretty concerned with our main focus, which is being in the USA. We like the in situ leaching aspect, and it's certainly what we're focusing on at this point.
While we're on that, just talking on deposit types and so forth, jurisdictions as well. Just add a little bit more there as far as how you guys are looking at the deposit types there. Is the company seeking both conventional uranium projects as well as in situ recovery projects? And then with that, we talked briefly Canada and US. Are there any other jurisdictions in the scope for that review?
Yeah, for deposit styles, I mean, of course, the in situ recovery is probably one of our top targets. I like that because it's something that you can get into. You can see production scenario fairly soon after discovering that type of deposit. But we're also looking at conventional mining in parts of the US. There's some really good, really interesting projects around. We're not ruling out either of those. And Canada and the U.S. number one focus. We are looking at other areas. There are some spots in parts of Africa that are maybe of interest. Maybe some parts in Europe that we're looking at. But at this point, we'd like to really build up our North American base first and foremost, and then see what else we can come up with along the way. That's one of the things with this type of downturn in the market right now. It's gone from 106 down to $78. That might not be that attractive for a lot of people, but in the business. But for us at the moment, it isn't a bad thing because it really does give us more properties to look at. And we've got some really exciting projects that we're looking at now. They're on the table. They're assets that certainly need to be looked at and need a lot more exploration. And it's much harder to do business when you've got a commodity that's $106, $110 uranium price. So not all bad in this market.
There's some good times to be looking at these things, and appreciate the comments there. And then as far as how you guys look at the various jurisdictions that may be of interest here, and of course I know it's early days, so you guys can't say a lot about what you're up to as far as the strategy, and we understand that. Just any other thoughts as far as how you guys look at this company, going out over the rest of the cycle here, going out a few years, what is the main goal here with the company? Obviously, we've seen in the past that both of the prior iterations of this group have been bought out. I would suspect it makes sense to do the same thing this time, or would you guys look to seek potentially a production strategy and move something forward if the right project comes along? Just talk about kind of how you look at the longer term strategy for the company, from here at the startup all the way to the exit.
For us, to get ourselves into a project that really is attractive, that has a fairly short timeline to be into production is a big deal for us. That's what we're looking for. Getting onto the New York Exchange has been very successful for this company in the past, for URZ, I should say, in the past. It's something that we certainly would like to look at again. On the board, we've got people that have that experience, and it's definitely a helpful thing to have if you've got a significant project that's going to start needing significant funds to move it forward towards a production scale. We've got that in this board, and we're built into that.
And on that topic, actually, just go ahead and talk about some of the folks there, a little bit more about some of the staff there that have returned from the former URZ group and what they bring to the table as far as expertise with this new company.
Yeah, from a technical side, people like Glenn Catchpole, Dr. Kirchner, these are technical experts in the uranium side. They're on our advisory board, and they bring a lot to the table in terms of, especially in parts of the US and parts of Europe. On the board, people like Ben LeBeau, Sandra McKay, they've been involved in URZ in the past. They're back again. These are people that know uranium, know the markets. Todd Hilditch was part of the second round of URZ that merged with Azarga. So he brings a lot to the table. Dennis Higgs, we already talked about him. He's not on the board, but he is a major investor and insider. And then, of course, Darcy Higgs, another guy who knows the markets, knows uranium. And they've done it before, and they're very driven to do it again.
Good to have a lot of those people come back here for this latest company, and looking forward to seeing who else comes along here as well as you guys start to grow and get off the ground here. Well, Mark, let's leave it there for now. Any other comments that you'd like to make? We'll take those, as well as this final question for potential investors who are listening in. The company has a market capitalization of about 3.5 million Canadian dollars. Why should URZ3 Energy be considered within the institutional, family office, and retail investors portfolio at this stage?
Well, I think it really comes down to the team. You've got a team of people, as we just talked about, that do know uranium. They know the markets. We have the ability to get onto the New York exchange with the right project and with the right market cap. We know how to move these things along. We've got a strong technical base. Now what we're doing is we're positioning ourselves into the right project. And I think that is worth something. We've got skills on the in situ recovery type deposits. We have skills in the conventional side. So we're not limited to what kind of project we can get into. And, there's a lot of upside for us.
And Mark, what is the best way for interested parties to reach the company?
Yeah, you can reach us at info@urz3.com and our website, which is urz3.com.
Mark, thank you for giving us an introduction to the company. Sounds very interesting, and we will continue to follow it. Best of luck in the coming months on more transactions, and we look forward to having you back.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it today, and I look forward to coming back.